So there we go. It is now live and recording, and we are set to have that for you guys, and we'll share that through some means, email or Facebook or something like that. So before we start with the panelists, I just want to make sure you guys are aware of the different resources available at Miami for you. There is the Center for Career Exploration and Success, miamioh.edu careers. The Dragonfly contact is Matt Yepes. He has worked with a number of Dragonfly students. He knows you guys are remote. He knows you guys are often at various stages of your career. So definitely feel free to drop him an email, and he can help you with all sorts of resources, cover letters, resumes, job searches, all sorts of things. The House Center for Writing Excellence, which you may know about in terms of helping you with your papers and projects in the program, but they also look at cover letters as well. So if you can't get a hold of Matt, you can write the House Center for Writing Excellence, and you can have a consultation to have them look at your resume, CV, or cover letter. And then, of course, your instructors, AIP facilitators, advisors, your Miami academic advisor, all these people are great resources for you guys to reach out to. And then your peers. You all have noticed this map that you're seeing here that is embedded in the courses, that you can connect with people that are geographically close to you. So you can zoom into your location. This is the Cincinnati area, so you can see the amazing number of students and alumni that are in the Cincinnati area. And if you click on many of these icons, actually, they open up, and there's many more people than you might imagine there. So definitely make use of the Dragonfly map to connect with people. But the other thing you guys can now do that we just built in is that you can search in the Portfolios tab. If you guys can kind of see this, when you log into Dragonfly Workshops, on the left side there's My Portfolios, and you can then search Portfolios, and that will search any past student whose portfolio is available. And in this example, I typed in urban ecology, and it pulled up anyone's portfolio who had a focus on urban ecology. So even if you're, not sure how to connect with people, you can connect with people geographically. You can also connect with them via interest in this search functionality that we have here. So that's all. I just want to say a few quick things, and now I really want to turn it over to our awesome panelists who bravely volunteered to be a part of this and to engage in this. So maybe you guys can each, we'll go around and you guys can each introduce yourselves and just tell a little bit about, where you are currently, where you reside, where you work, and a little bit about your Dragonfly story. So Fabiana, why don't we start with you?
Absolutely. Well, thanks everyone for joining the webinar, and thanks for Project Dragonfly to organizing this. So, well, my name is Fabiana Spinelli, and I am originally from Brazil, but I moved to Canada in 2009. And I've been working mostly with biodiversity at the international level. So with the United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity, basically since 2010, when I got here in Quebec, in Canada. But I have to say that Project Dragonfly and the Global Field Program really helped me to kind of focus my career path within the organization. So I'm really happy with where I am now. I'm finally working on wildlife and conservation and sustainable use. So this is something I really wanted to do since many years ago, and I find that the master program on the Global Field Program and with Miami University were key to helping me get here. So I graduated in 2006, and I participated in well, the 3 expeditions. I did Belize, I did Borneo, and then I did also the Peruvian Amazon. So this is kind of what I did in the program. And most of my projects, they focus on primate conservation. So this is what I really like to do, what I really, my conservation passion is to work on with primates. And that's another thing that I was able to do within the program.
Awesome, Fabiana. So we will definitely come back to you because I know United Nations and primate interests are going to pique a lot of people's questions about like how do you get into that career? How do you make that happen? So we'll definitely come back to you, I'm sure, on that. Diego.
Sure. Thank you, Kevin, and thank you to everyone for joining. So my name is Diego. I am currently in Chicago. I'm actually going to be here for 1 more week before I head down to Mexico. I graduated in December of 2017, and I just have to say my background is probably a little bit different than maybe most people in the program or a lot of people in the program. I don't have a science background, or I didn't before this program. My background was actually in business. And it's a story I've told a lot of people, so I'm going to make it very short for you guys. I volunteered at a sea turtle project in Costa Rica, and that changed my life. At that point, I knew that all I ever wanted to do was work in conservation. And so I came back to the States from that trip. I searched for a way to kind of find my path and my avenue to get into conservation, and I found this, the AIP, which really was a game changer for me and gave me so many opportunities. It allowed me to network and gain experience and gain skills that maybe were very hidden within me or that I just needed to develop. So it's truly been an incredible experience for me. I'm very happy with the decision that I made, and this job that I'm starting in a week, it's down in Mexico. I'm going to be a sea turtle volunteer coordinator. So my thing is I'm in love with sea turtles. They're the ones that kind of made me change my life. And at the same time, I love talking to people, and I love inspiring people, educating people. So I'll be working with volunteers and guests at a hotel, an eco-friendly hotel. And I think a lot of it is possible because of the AIP.
Awesome. Yeah, that's super exciting, and it's great you're in Chicago. Chicago is one of our first AIP locations, along with Cincinnati, in the very, very beginning. And it's great that you developed this international focus through a program that has local roots there in Chicago. So awesome. Emily, why don't you share about yourself?
Hi. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. So I work at the Carnegie Science Center in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So I'm actually located in Pennsylvania. And I learned a lot through going through the AIP program, trying to find new ways of communicating conservation and science to our visitors at the Science Center. And I've been able to incorporate a lot of the projects and things I worked on through the master's program into my everyday life. And I've been able to kind of grow and develop my skills of communicating the importance of conservation. I'm currently actually working on a bee project and promoting bee conservation for high school and middle school students. And so it's something I'm really excited about, and I feel like a lot of the information that I've been able to incorporate, I have done some research in while I was working on projects for various classes. So overall, it's been a good experience, and I feel like it's really helped me in what I'm doing now.
Cool. All right. Well, I'm sure we'll want to get into like more of the specifics with you guys about, actual projects you did and what courses, how you feel they moved you ahead. A lot of the people participating may be at a very early stage, maybe later in their time at Dragonfly, but they may be wondering, these all sound so exciting, I think, things that you guys are doing. So thinking about if there were any specific projects or specific things that that helped you sort of leap forward maybe with your careers, that might be something we could talk about a little bit. So maybe Fabiana, do you have any thoughts on that?
Sure. So I think something that perhaps is not really the focus of the program, not one of the foundations, but one of the things that really helped me is the peer review process. So I think right now what I do a lot of reports, I do a lot of assessments, I have to write many papers and also revise those from many organizations and many colleagues in the office. And I think what we learn in terms of how to review our classmates' work, give positive feedback, focus our review on certain aspects. This is what I'm using a lot. So this is really, really important how we learn how to review and provide peer feedback within the program. But also, I think because I already, before I started the program, I sort of had a global or international experience, but this connection between the local and the global, I think, this is something that I'm also really using, and it was key for me to transition from other positions I had in the organization to where I am now. So this kind of local to global connection is something that is being very, very important.
Cool. That's interesting. You talk about the peer responses being so important, and I'm curious, Diego and Emily, did you guys have things like that you connected with, either the peer responses or other assignments that you felt like helped you move ahead, or approaches that you uniquely took where you looked at like an assignment for CSC or for IUV, one of the core courses, one of the AIP courses, or your Earth expeditions, where you just kind of tried something, went out on a limb, or were inspired by someone else and it helped you move things forward? Maybe Emily, you want to start?
I would say it was actually a culmination of everything. So when applying for a promotion, I actually used my portfolio and I used my overall project of what I created to kind of help me in that. Unfortunately, I didn't get the promotion, but I was really proud of being able to actually share what I've been working on, and it was really exciting to see other people's responses to some of the ideas I had come up with, and being able to think of, a lot of the stuff we had worked on was all inquiry-based, and trying to think, how can I incorporate that at an informal education facility like a science center? Sometimes it's a little tricky because, people aren't there for a long period of time, and so they can't necessarily finish out an inquiry if they're not in the same space for an extended period of time. And so it was really fun to try and think of how to engage people and find ways to still show them how inquiry can be so important and how they can really enjoy that aspect of science. And I really liked getting to kind of share that with some of my colleagues.
So you talked about like not getting the promotion. So what were you shooting for? And I guess I bring this up because I feel like with Dragonfly, it's a lot of soft skills we push for a lot of soft skills, and but sometimes, these things are important, and this is a networking and career webinar. So, promotions are really important to people. What do you think didn't work out there? I don't know how much you can share or feel comfortable sharing, but.
Yeah. So I work in the presenting department. And so the management position was available. In a way, it was kind of a blessing in disguise, because if I had gotten it, I wouldn't be able to interact with people and actually do the education aspect. And I think that's why they didn't give it to me, because in the interview, I had mentioned how important the education was and getting to interact with people and how important that was to me. And it was more of an administration position. So I wouldn't necessarily get to do the hands-on working with people and getting to share some of the experiences I've gone through through the master's program. So I think it all worked out the way it was supposed to.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, no, I think that's a good way to look at it. And, but it still is important, I think, to go for these things, to push the envelope, to try to look for new careers or new promotions or tweaks to your existing jobs that can give you value in your life, right? So, yeah, I'm curious, Diego, do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, how did you end up, with this amazing opportunity with the sea turtles and anything else you've been thinking about here?
Yeah, of course. I think, similar to what Emily said, I think it's everything. I think when I was a student in the program, I struggled quite often to say, like just thinking, how is this project going to help me in my master plan or my goals, or just kind of like finding the connections was difficult for me at various points throughout the program. And I remember my advisor at Brookfield Zoo here in Chicago, which was my master institution, she told me, take a step back. You're going to see that everything is connected. You'll find that everything will flow eventually and things will make sense. I was having a hard time defining my master plan because I wanted to do everything. I wanted to be in marine conservation and protection of coastal ecosystems, and I wanted to be out in urban environments talking to people. So again, I think it's a combination of everything. All of the projects really are building blocks, but I think for me, one that stands out is the Earth expedition. I got to go to Australia. Emily, I was going to ask you, your picture in the poster, is that Australia? Yes. Is that Townsville?
Yep.
I recognize it. Maggie Island in the back.
Definitely my favorite part of the whole program was getting to participate in the Earth expedition to Australia.
Absolutely. It was incredible. And I think any Earth expedition is very powerful in its own way. But going back to your question, Kevin, I think all of the projects help in some way to kind of build you to be this person that you come out of after the program. And for me, I was working in market intelligence for consumer research, so nothing to do with conservation really. But even there, I was able to find the connections, because a lot of these, if you walk into a grocery store and you see all of those brands that are selling you food and drink products and beauty and personal care, they're all interested in what consumers want. And the trend is moving towards consumers wanting to have real products, and they want to know about the products. They want natural ingredients. They want products that are ethical. And I realized that it's all connected. So a lot of the times in my own job, I found myself presenting to some of the biggest consumer packaged good companies in the world about trends in environmentally friendly products or environmentally friendly packaging, or consumers wanting local products with smaller carbon footprints. But then I was always interested in actually being hands-on in conservation. And when I graduated from the program, it was actually my professor in the Australia course who sent me organizations that I could potentially apply for. And I started reaching out, and I found this sea turtle project in Mexico, very small project. I got in contact with them. They interviewed me and offered me a role to go down there, but it was completely unpaid for 5 months. So I ended up saying no that time, because I was at a point in my life where I was like, I can't just drop everything and not get paid. But I told them, let's stay in touch, and maybe in the future it works out. And sure enough, a year later, meaning this past September, they reached out to me and said, hey, we think you're the right person and want you to come down. And they offered me some better terms that I was very ready to accept. And so kind of dropping everything and moving to Mexico for a year at least.
I love that story. That is awesome. And it's cool when I was reading your bio, you know, about having a business degree background for undergraduate, and then, you know, and also Fabiana, you too, right? Don't you have like a law degree or something as well?
I do. Yeah, I do. I did a degree in environmental law before this one.
So I think, you know, it's interesting thinking like the different paths that people come to this program, and, you know, Diego, you being willing to kind of like decline that first offer and then come back and, you know, make things work and kind of see where it goes. And even just your instructor for Australia, you know, helping out a little bit with a list of places you could apply to. That's really, really awesome. I want to give an opportunity for anyone that's participating, if you guys have questions, to feel free to chat them, send to all participants in the chat there. If you have a question for either, you know, any one of the panelists or for the group as a whole, feel free to do that at any time, and we'll keep our eyes out for that. So let's drill in a little bit, like with master plan and maybe PMW. I'm curious how you guys approach those, the professional media workshop course, and did you do anything for a publication requirement for this program? Is there something you wished you had have done that you might recommend to participants that are watching this? With that, and anything with your, I guess I'll wrap this in at the risk of having a too complicated question, but also with your master plan, is there if that happens to call to you a little bit more, was there anything you wish you had have done with your master plan or your publication requirement, or that you did that was great? So Emily, do you want to start with any of those?
Sure. I'll actually start with the publication, because that was probably one of the hardest things for me. I had done a study on crabs at the beach one summer, and it was probably my favorite study that I did. And I really wanted to try and get it published, but it was really hard to try to find a publication that was the right fit, that was kind of the right fee. I wasn't anticipating that the publication would have a fee attached to it. And you know, at the time I necessarily couldn't afford making a publication, so I kind of felt defeated because I couldn't go that route. But I ended up publishing a really important paper. I published an article about invasive species in my local community to a local newspaper. So that's really cool to be able to do something local and still kind of get the word out about, you know, what invasive species are and how they're impacting our environment. And it's something small, but I hope that it made a big impact.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, I think the publishing realm is such a complicated area when it comes into fees, and if you don't have, you know, an organization you're working with and you're dealing with that. But can you say, Emily, you broke up a little bit. Where did you end up submitting it? And
it was a local newspaper, and it was about invasive species in the local rivers of Pittsburgh. And it was actually something that the organization I work for, they do a monthly publication. So I was actually able to contribute to the organization and help them by publishing something that was a little different.
Gotcha. Cool. All right. Awesome. Yeah. Go ahead. Is that Diego? You started to say something?
Oh, I was just saying, great. Similar to you, Emily, what I did is I actually had one of my papers about climate change and its effects on sea turtles published. It was a paper that I wrote in one of my classes, and throughout the PMW course, it was written very scientifically, but I know obviously that was a requirement for that particular course. But I knew I wanted the paper to be more relatable to the general public, and I wanted to share it with my friends and family and people in my social networks. So I wanted to change the language, and that's what I did in my PMW course. I ended up getting in contact with an organization. It's a sea turtle conservation organization in California. They're called Turtle Island Restoration Network. I was actually kind of volunteering for them remotely. I was translating their memos and their studies, and I worked with them to get my paper. I basically worked throughout the course to change the language so that their audience could read the paper on the organization's website. And it was great. I was very happy. It got published on their blog, and got some questions about it and some good feedback from people. So it was a very interesting process, seeing how what to me typically scientific writing can be a little dry. Hopefully I don't get cut off right now. But my paper ended up having a different tone completely, and I ended up with these two versions of my paper that I was very, very happy with, and was able to share that with a bigger audience.
Cool. Awesome. Then I assume that ended up on your resume or your CV or in a cover letter to the organization you ended up working with. Is that true? Or?
No, absolutely. Yes, I put it in my resume, my cover letter as well, and I shared it with people for sure.
Right. Yeah, there was a question. I'll get to you, Fabiana, in just a second. I'm sure you have some thoughts on it too. But yeah, there was that question just for you guys to be thinking about. The question was, since the program does a lot with soft skills, how do you, what actually are you putting in your CV and your resume or your cover letters to communicate things that look, very impressive and very real and substantial and authentic to an employer? Are there ways you've tweaked your resumes to do that? So that's something we can sort of be thinking about. But Fabiana, you could either jump in on that question, or if you want to tackle the earlier one about the master plan and the publication.
Perhaps let's go to the publication one. So yes, I really enjoy that course because the whole idea of writing with the reader in mind for me was very important, and also the technique that we learned to use the reverse outline to review what we have already written. So this is something of the things that I'm using now in my job. So I decided for that course to publish my work on a scientific journal. And the journal I chose was part of a regional journal, Neotropical Primates, which is a publication of the Primate Specialist Group of the IUCN Species Survival Commission. So it goes to all Latin America, and it's open source. Everyone can access it. So they publish 2 editions per year. So that's what I chose. So I submitted my article, but they took a really long time to get back to me. So after a year I submitted, they got back to me with lots of corrections and lots of questions on my data analysis. So, and they gave me 1 month to do all that. So I, unfortunately, with all the work that I had, I wasn't able to meet the deadline. So I'm still kind of in this process and looking at the article and seeing what I'm going to do about it. This is something I really wanted to publish, especially because I also have this plan to kind of continue my academic career and go and do a PhD. So this is something I have in mind. I've been doing some research, and having an article published would be very helpful, for applying to PhD. So that's one thing that I'm not over yet with that article. So I'm still working on it.
Yeah, it's amazing how long the publishing process can take for the scientific journals, for sure. So yeah, keep at it for don't give up. But it is, and I know some journals do commit to a certain turnaround time, and that might be something to consider for the future. I know some of the online journals and open access journals like PLOS One, PLOS Biology sometimes have like, you know, we will commit to get you a response in 1 month. But I think it's great you did a regionally focused tropical primatology journal, given your interest. Makes sense. Okay, there's another question just for you guys to mull, and then come to if you have thoughts on it, because this one might be a challenging one. Here it says, I really want to get the most out of the Dragonfly program, but my time and travel abilities are limited by personal circumstances. Do you have any advice about how to make connections with both peers and potential employers on a time and distance budget? So, yeah, does anyone have any thoughts on that?
I think, wow, I would say that, I mean, resources are always limited, right? And I think that maybe goes, at least in my experience, to the reason why I turned down the opportunity to take on this role that I'm taking now a year ago. Because at that point, I felt like I couldn't just leave everything. I had a lot of things going on personally. I was finishing the program. I was okay financially, and I was honestly afraid to take that risk. But I think, I mean, honestly, it's a matter of, in a way, it's about being organized and also being true to yourself and what you want to do. And I think if you're patient with yourself, if you take the time to kind of prioritize the things that you want to accomplish, this may sound like cliche or cheesy, but really, if you prioritize, if you sit down and just think about, you know, your priorities, I think you can definitely identify what you need to do in order to get those opportunities. For me, when this opportunity came this time around, I knew, in a way, and I'll tell you guys a quick story. So when I was offered this role, when they came back to me this year, my immediate reaction was, I can't just drop everything and go to Mexico. I said no last year. I'm kind of nervous about that. And it was actually my best friend who, when I was telling her, she told me, do you realize that it's never going to be the right time? You just need to do it. It's, at one point or another, you're always going to say, I have this going on or I have that going on. And when she said that, I was like, you know, just light bulb went off in my head, and I was like, she's right. Like, maybe the circumstances will be different, but the time may never really be perfect. You just kind of have to take a step forward, and whether it's a baby step or a big step, one step will lead to another, and I think eventually you'll see that you can do it for sure.
To kind of go off of that, I actually have a thought that kind of answers, I guess, both questions that have come up so far. You know, I understand not having, you know, the ability to necessarily travel or, you know, feeling like you've got to stay where you're at and just having limited time. But like Diego said, sometimes you just have to take the risk. I applied for a job in Florida, which is far away from my family, and I don't necessarily have a way to get there, but it was the perfect job. It was an ocean conservation education position, which kind of combines all of the things I had done in my master plan, all of the things that I'm currently doing in my job, and it just seemed like a perfect fit. But when I sent my application, I didn't reflect that. I didn't reflect that I had worked on things that were similar through my master's program. And so I instantly regretted not including a cover letter that talked about some of the things I did. And so, you know, being true to yourself, like Diego said, and, you know, being honest if you have something that you want to go for, and just looking up stuff online. It never hurts to apply. Even if you don't get an interview or don't get an opportunity to actually follow through with it, you can always say no, but at least taking the risk to apply or taking the risk to try and find a way to incorporate it into your resume or a cover letter. You get a lot from this program, and, don't sell yourself short. Everything you're working on can go towards your end game or whatever goal you may have.
Fantastic. Yeah, and I think a lot of something to consider also is like to figure out the general idea of where you want to go, what you do want to do, to find examples of jobs that fit that bill, right? So you might think like there's just a question here from Barbara, about wanting to work in conservation, but not knowing exactly how to segue into that field. So, and maybe this is actually good for Fabiana to get into this question, but like for someone who's a teacher with no science background, maybe not much science background, or people that want to change careers, like what were there job boards you guys look at? How would you even start, or what can you tell people that are wondering how to make that transition?
Well, I've been to many transitions because I've done so many things. So I actually started my career as a teacher when I was in Brazil. So I taught for about 5 years. Then when I moved to Canada, so I had to restart and, find another job and start looking for what opportunities were available here and what was the job market here in Canada. And because I was just finishing my degree in environmental law, so I found out about the Convention on Biological Diversity. And then frankly, what I did was I came here, maybe the second day I was here in Canada, I came to the convention and I knocked on their door and I told them, I'm here, I'm interested in working with you, I would like to learn more about what you do. I've studied a little bit of the program through my degree in law, and I'm available. I want to work with you. And I think one of the things is really just to don't be afraid and knock on people's door and show up and show your interest and keep on trying and being persistent, because that's how I started. So I started as an intern in 2010. So I did a 6-month internship. And then after that, I had to wait a little bit because the UN is full of rules, and after you do an internship, you have to wait certain months to be able to apply for regular positions. I don't think this rule is on place anymore, but that's what I had to do at the time. So then I started applying for new positions. So I got a contract for 2 years. I worked on this very interesting project about cities and biodiversity. Then I moved to another organization. I work on communications. I work with this, it's another international organization called Commission for Environmental Cooperation. But that job was the communications department, so I've never worked in communications before, but I was interested in learning and acquiring new skills, because this is, I see Emily spoke a little bit about her communication work, and it's definitely very important nowadays how we communicate conservation messages, so I was able to be in that kind of environment and learn skills and a little bit of also how to write communications piece, communications product. So that was very interesting for me. But at the end of the day, it's about trying and see if you like it, because sometimes this sounds like something you want to do, but then when you are there, may not be what you were really willing to do. But I think I've been always trying different things, and there's always things that I like, things that I don't like. But trying for me, I never lost any opportunity for me. I just take whatever it is available at the moment, and then I see what happens. And then from there, how I can move to something else, to another place or to another thing, another project.
I would just, yeah, and I would add, like, because there's this question also that I'm seeing about how you dovetail your coursework and projects with your real-world work. And one thing I'm hearing you guys say, like, Diego and Fabiana, you both mentioned, the idea of putting yourself out there to, show your interest, leading with your interest first, and then a position slowly but surely might start to emerge. I think starting using your coursework, for those of you in the program that are listening, using your coursework to volunteer or to spend a few hours at a local conservation organization, a nature center, a zoo that you're connected with. We certainly have quite a few examples of people in this program who started volunteering, just went up to a zoo or another type of organization and said, hey, I'm a graduate student, I've got some course projects that I want to work on, and maybe there's some things you want to analyze that I can help with. And then, when a position opened up 6 months down the road or a year down the road, they were already a known entity with skills. So that's one option that might work out.
That's actually what happened to me. I started as an intern at the Carnegie Science Center. I was moving up to Pittsburgh. I didn't have any work. It was taking a long time for me to get my teaching certification for Pennsylvania, switching from Ohio. And I figured it would be a good opportunity for me to try and get some of the groundwork for some of my initial classes. And, a position opened up probably 2 months in. And I applied for both a full-time and a part-time position, and they ended up giving me the full-time position. They already knew me, they knew my work, they knew what I was capable of, which made a huge difference, and I think really sold me on the job, because I had actually applied for the part-time job before I even got into the program, and I never heard back. So I think it made a huge difference on me actually getting the job.
Very cool. Yeah, that's great. So definitely, wear that graduate student, hat and use that as a way to get to know some organizations if you are thinking about career changes, because that can really be a good foot in the door. The other thing is, once you start looking at different organizations, like if you're interested in like ecology and conservation jobs, there's a listserv called Ecolog-L. I know that's a weird term. It's a listserv. I'm going to put it in the chat. Again, it's showing me as Lauren, who is our awesome GA here. But that's a listserv. You guys can Google it. It should come up, and you can join that listserv. And it has job positions for things like research technicians, doing conservation work, everything from a variety of fields. And even if you're just voyeuring in on that listserv to see what types of jobs. Of course, you can also go to Idealist, and there's probably some other good job search places that you guys can look if you search in conservation jobs or if you took, environmental education jobs. I know.
And also reach out to our career services.
And reach out to our career services, because that's Rosemary's just reminding me of that, because they really are the experts. They know all the search engines. So again, Matthew Yepes, he may, I'll just put his name in there again for you guys, but when you go into your Miami email and you type his name, it should come up. You can get a hold of him for a consultation to try and find some good searches for career changes. Awesome. Okay, so hopefully we're not having any other audio issues. I know there was one person who posted that there were some audio problems, but I'm not seeing any other messages. So I think we'll keep forging ahead. We're there, and certainly if you guys have any more questions, keep them coming, because it really is beneficial to see that. Diego, what was your master plan about, and how did you sort of come to that?
Yeah, wow, my master plan was all about finding a way for me to inspire people to be active participants in conservation. And that may sound a little vague, but it really was a culmination of me struggling to define it throughout the entire program. And I remember there were different milestones and checkpoints for our master plan that we had to hit. And I remember talking to my peers and my instructors, and some of my peers being teachers, like they knew exactly what they wanted to do. I'm going to create a curriculum that includes this course or this activities for students, and I'm going to start a garden at my school. And I was really struggling with it because I mean, there I was still working in business, and I wanted to do so many things in conservation. And the way I got to that was by realizing that I'm happy, like I'm at my happiest and at my best when I'm honestly just talking to people, inspiring people in my everyday life to understand why conservation matters, why being mindful of your impact on our planet is so important, and how you don't have to be in an exotic location, or you don't have to be a scientist, you don't have to be necessarily a conservationist by trade to actually participate and to be a part of that movement in a way. And that's kind of, that idea has led me to find the opportunities that I've been lucky to find. And I've actually, something I haven't mentioned is actually when I graduated in December, I became a CLL for the program. So I became a community learning leader. So basically I went to Baja this past summer. I was in the Baja course as a CLL, and I found that opportunity by reaching out in my last semester when I was in the program. I reached out to Jill. Before that, I spoke to my professor in Australia, and I told her I want to be a CLL. What kind of things are you guys looking for, and how can I possibly forge a path that will lead me to be a CLL? And it was a lot of collaboration and reaching out to people and following up. And I think that's pretty much what you have to do for a lot of things. I see a question from Barbara. What's a CLL? So basically, as a CLL, I guess the easiest way to explain it is you're kind of like a TA in a way. So you offer support to the instructor for the Earth Expedition courses. Yeah, community learning leader. So you get to go, you help out throughout the course, and the course is typically from April through December, and you are kind of like the right-hand person for the instructor. You help with evaluating, not really grading, that's the instructor's job, but you're helping out with all of the different to-dos that the students have to accomplish, and you're helping out with feedback, and you provide direction, you share your experience. And honestly, that was kind of like another building block for me in my career. And it's been amazing. It allowed me to stay as part of the program even after I graduated. And it's just another way that you can be active in the program and still participate. And to me, honestly, this whole year, it was my first year as a CLL, and it's been an incredible experience.
Very cool. So yeah, so maybe we can get into master plan a little bit with Fabiana and Emily, or some other things. But one thing I did want to mention, we often have people that are like there are sometimes for different careers there are sort of unspoken rules that you might not be aware of. For example, so for academic type positions, for like if you want to be an adjunct instructor, we've had some folks who go on to get their master's from Project Dragonfly, and then they go on to teach undergraduate courses at a local college or university as a side gig. Some people have moved on and done that more full time as well. But if you're applying for that kind of university level type position, you're going to submit a CV instead of a resume, so you're going to make sure that your CV is really developed and is longer than 1 or 2 pages that you would have in a resume. So again, there's all these sort of, there's different conditions for different jobs, and you guys, the Dragonfly group has so many, we have so many people in different types of positions, looking for different types of positions, that if you are changing careers, you really should find out what is the norm for that career by reaching out to one of your instructors, one of your peers who has that position, or again, career resources here at Miami, and kind of find out what is the norm there. Also, I would say a lot of times for teacher positions, recommendation letters may be a little bit less formal than you would expect if you're seeing a recommendation letter from an academic, from a professor or an instructor. So there's just differences in careers and what's expected that you guys should be navigating and figuring out through your time. So, and the other thing is building your resume through your projects. I see there is this question that we'll get to in a second, which is great. But you know, finding ways to take the things you're learning. If you know you want to go on and be a landscape ecologist or a you know, do work with as a research technician at some lab that's looking at spatial land use or something very technical like that, then you should, you know, do some projects that involve geographic information systems or learn some things like these technical skills through your projects in the program that you can then put on your resume or your CV. So again, sort of figure out where you want to go and then what skills you need to do. And because all the projects in this program are open, you guys will be able to sort of build those skills in. All right, sorry, I might be rambling a little bit, which is the point of this question. When you're explaining what is your pitch? What is your pitch about this program? How do you explain it in a concise way? So, I don't know, maybe Fabiana or Emily or any of you guys, Diego, you guys want to give us your pitch on what this program is about?
It's hard to explain. I was lucky whenever I was interviewing for my promotion. I knew the people I was interviewing with, and they knew about my program already. So I didn't necessarily have to explain it to them. But in a nutshell, just to kind of like remind them what it was about, I kind of just presented it as I worked towards getting my master's in biology, focusing on education conservation. And though there is a lot more to this program, if somebody's interviewing, I feel as though sometimes if we go into all the awesome details, it may be overwhelming for them since they weren't necessarily a part of a lot of the great things that the program has to offer. And just a lot of it is just based on how are we going to communicate the importance of conservation. So that's how I like to summarize it. And then when people ask more details, then you can expand on it a little bit more. I don't know if anyone else has any other tips. I'm definitely open to how can I present this to other employers?
Yeah, if I may add, I think Emily described very well. But one question that I kept getting here in Montreal, because Montreal is a university city, there's 4 universities here, and everyone was asking me, why are you doing a master's online when you have 4 universities here in Montreal? So that was a kind of a hard question to answer sometimes, but for me is the thing is that I've spent a lot of time and I did a lot of research in what kind of program was going to be the best one for me for what I wanted to do. And I was only going to do a program and continue my academic career if it was about primate conservation, because this is something I really wanted to do. It's been my career dream for years since I started my degree in biology. And what worked really well for me was the flexibility of the Global Field Program, because you can you can come from any kind of field, and you can learn and build from the skills you have, and the program gives you a lot of flexibility for you to develop the project according to the interests you have. So for me, it was primate conservation. So I was able to dive into that field, and I was very, very happy with, you know, the opportunities, the feedback, and all the structure and infrastructure provided by the Global Field Program to be able to meet my research and my career interests. So I think it's a very flexible program, and you can do basically whatever you want. I think this is one of the key elements that worked really well for me.
Awesome. Well, I see we are at about 9 o'clock, and I know we had slotted just an hour for this, and I want to respect everyone's time. I know people have places they need to go. I want to thank all the panelists. I want to thank all the participants. Rosemary, you want to say goodbye before we...
So thank you for signing in, and we will have sent you an evaluation. If you guys can give us some feedback, just so we can do this again and we can meet your needs. But thank you, especially our panelists. Thank you for signing in and helping us out here.
And if you guys want to, I see Beth sent a thank you there. If any of you feel inclined to write a little thank you to the panelists, they would sure appreciate that. Feel free to do that in the chat. And like I said, we will have the recording available as well in case folks missed this. But thanks, guys, for trying this out. I will put my name and my email also in the chat. That's another way you guys can give any feedback, but certainly you'll get the survey, so please do that. And that'll help us make more events like this that can be hopefully useful to you guys and connect you guys all over wherever you're located. So thanks again, and thanks so much, Diego. Appreciate it. Emily, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Happy to do it.
Fabiana, thanks so much.
Thank
Glad
you.
that technology worked out for you. And take care, everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks.
You too.
Thank you. Good night.